You know, when a physical retail business decides to move across town, everyone just kind of understands this chaos of the operation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you have moving trucks idling on the curb, you're packing up inventory into endless cardboard boxes, and you're hanging this massive banner in the old window. You are basically just praying your regulars actually follow you to the new location.
Right, because you can physically see the heavy lifting happening right in front of you.
Exactly. But when a digital business decides to move, like when you decide to migrate an e-commerce store from one platform to another, there is this incredibly dangerous assumption that the entire process is invisible. People think that moving house on the internet is just a matter of clicking a few buttons.
Yeah, the expectation is almost always this magical copy-paste scenario. Merchants assume they're going to hit a transfer button, watch a progress bar fill up, and then by Friday afternoon, their entire digital storefront will just magically exist in a new ecosystem.
But looking at the source material for our deep dive today, which is this really comprehensive playbook on migrating a business from Wix to Shopify, that assumption couldn't be further from the truth.
Not even close, yeah.
So, whether you are an entrepreneur prepping for a platform shift or you're just a curious learner wanting to know how digital ecosystems operate, our mission today is to help you understand exactly when a business outgrows its first platform. And, the real nitty-gritty reality of moving house online.
It's a massive undertaking.
It really is. And to set the stage, the playbook makes this fundamental premise very clear. Wix is fantastic for its drag-and-drop simplicity, but it's a closed visual builder. A migration isn't a simple copy-paste job. It is a complete rebuild. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, because before we can even talk about how a migration works, we need to understand the catalyst. Like, what exactly pushes a business to leave a really comfortable, familiar platform like Wix in the first place?
Right, it feels a bit like renting a beautifully furnished starter apartment. When you first move in, it's absolutely perfect.
Everything is just handled for you.
Exactly. But then 3 years later, your business has doubled in size. You realize you need to knock down a wall to build an office, and you suddenly realize you don't actually own the building. You don't have the architectural permission to make those structural changes.
Love that analogy. And the technical term the playbook uses for hitting that wall is catalog friction.
Catalog friction.
Right. And the numbers here are honestly pretty surprising. So Wix Business Elite technically caps at 50,000 products.
Oh.
But the reality on the ground, like what merchants actually experience, is that the back-end performance noticeably degrades at just 5,000 SKUs.
Wow, 5,000. That's really not that many for a growing store.
No, it's not, because a SKU stock keeping unit adds up incredibly fast. If you sell like one single t-shirt in 5 sizes and 4 colors, that one shirt is suddenly 20 unique SKUs in your database.
Oh, man. So you could be operating at a fraction of your technical limit, but the system is already wheezing.
Exactly. Things just start slowing down. Bulk editing inventory gets super laggy, and critically, there is no native multi-location inventory.
Wait, what does that mean practically?
It means if you have a warehouse in California and a retail shelf in New York, routing that inventory seamlessly on Wix requires all these clunky workarounds. Shopify, by contrast, is basically engineered to handle millions of individual SKUs without that friction.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But the friction isn't just internal, right? There's also this staggering gap in the broader ecosystem, like with apps.
Oh, the app gap is huge. Wix has roughly 300 e-commerce apps available.
Okay.
The Shopify App Store has over 12,000.
12,000. That is a massive chasm. Why is it so different?
It really comes down to open versus closed architecture. Shopify has an open API, so developers flock there to build specialized scaling tools, things that simply don't exist natively on Wix.
Like what kind of tools?
Native B2B functionality is a big one. So things like company accounts, Net 30 payment terms, advanced wholesale portals, or even robust point-of-sale hardware integrations. If you need those, you kind of have to leave.
Okay, I hear that, but I want to push back for a second. Is it really just about the number of products and apps? What if you're listening to this and you only sell 50 items, but they're luxury goods and you do millions in revenue? Should you still move?
That's a great point, and the playbook actually addresses this. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it all comes down to what they call the edge case rule.
The edge case rule.
Right. If you are only hitting one specific limit, Let's say your catalog is tiny, but you desperately need a subscription app. Wix doesn't have, you don't necessarily have to execute a full migration.
Oh, really? What do you do instead?
You can use a workaround like a headless storefront. You keep the Wix front end, but route the checkout through a different system.
Hmm.
You only undertake a full massive migration when 2 or more platform limits start to compound.
Ah, okay. So it's when the pain points start stacking up that the rebuild becomes inevitable, which shifts us to the reality check of the move itself.
And this is where it gets messy.
Yeah, because once a merchant decides to move, they expect that magical transfer button. We know that's the biggest misconception. So let's break down the data transfer matrix from the text. What actually moves easily?
So the structured data moves pretty well via CSV files.
Just standard spreadsheets.
Exactly. Things like your product titles, your customer records, email subscribers, all of that exports and imports nicely. But the manual side is brutal.
Right, because images don't just transfer.
No, they don't. You can't put JPEGs in a CSV. You have to use bulk downloader tools, fetch thousands of files, and physically re-upload them, and things like your blog poster collections. That is strictly manual copy-pasting.
That sounds exhausting. But the text highlights an even bigger nightmare, right? The Velo code.
Yes. Velo is Wix's proprietary JavaScript layer. It powers any custom logic you've built, like a fancy pricing calculator.
Let me guess, it doesn't transfer at all.
It absolutely does not transfer. It's totally proprietary. It must be documented with screenshots and then completely rebuilt from scratch on Shopify using their language, which is Liquid, or using Shopify functions.
Oh, wow. So you have to hire a developer just to rebuild the calculator you already had. But wait, I'm looking at the data matrix for customer data. The text says customer passwords cannot be transferred at all.
Not a single one.
Won't that cause a massive wave of panic? Like on day one, people are going to submit angry, I can't log in tickets. Why wouldn't Shopify just build a tool to import those?
It's a totally fair question, but what's fascinating here is that this isn't a platform flaw. It's actually a fundamental internet security feature.
Security, how so?
Passwords are one-way hashed and encrypted outside of Shopify. Basically, when a user makes a password, the system scrambles it mathematically. Even Wix doesn't know what your password actually is.
Oh, I see. So if they don't know it, they can't put it in an export file.
Exactly. So to avoid that customer service meltdown, the Playbook recommends a very specific solution. You send a targeted launch day email campaign to your customers.
Like celebrating the new site.
Right. You frame it as a platform upgrade, and you give them a simple one-click reset link to activate their account on the new system.
That's smart. And what about their old order history? I'd imagine hauling 3 years of receipts is pretty data heavy.
It is. You could pay for a migration app like Cart2Cart or Matrixify to do it, but honestly, most merchants take a more pragmatic approach. They just drop their old Wix site to the cheapest plan, archive it as read-only, and leave it up for 12 months.
Just as an internal database? That makes so much more sense. Okay, so moving requires time and money. With all this data transfer established, let's look at the financial lever. What are the actual costs and timelines to execute this rebuild?
Well, the timeline depends heavily on complexity. A simple catalog-only store takes maybe 2 to 4 weeks.
That's not too bad.
No, but if you have a complex store like one utilizing Wix bookings, Velo code, or members areas, that stretches to 8 to 12 weeks. And that's primarily because of feature replacement, not data transfer.
Right, because you have to find an app to replace Wix bookings.
Exactly. You'd have to find and configure something like the Sesame app on Shopify. And the hard costs scale with that. DIY migrations run under $500.
But agency rebuilds are more.
Much more. They usually cost between $3,000 and $8,000.
Wow. Okay, so what does this all mean for the monthly overhead? The text breaks down a 3-year cost comparison for a merchant doing $300,000 in annual GMV, right?
Yes. So Wix Business is $36 a month. Shopify Basic is $39. But for that GMV, the text recommends Shopify Grow, which is $105 a month.
So it feels like deciding whether to pay higher monthly HOA fees for a neighborhood just because it gives you access to a cheaper grocery store. Does the math actually work out?
It absolutely does because of the true financial lever card processing fees. The swipe fees.
Right. While Shopify Grow is significantly more expensive monthly, $105 versus $36. The card rate drops from 2.9% to 2.7%.
That seems like such a tiny difference, like a fraction of a percent.
It sounds tiny, but at $300,000 a year in revenue, that 0.2 percentage point difference saves about $1,800 over 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it effectively offsets the higher subscription costs entirely.
Oh,
But there is a catch. I have to warn you about Shopify's penalty fee.
a penalty fee. For what?
If you try to use a third-party payment gateway instead of Shopify payments, they will tack on an extra transaction fee of up to 2%.
2% on every sale. That would obliterate your profit margin.
Completely. They want you using their proprietary payment infrastructure, and they penalize you heavily if you don't.
Okay, so the platform is built, the code is replaced, and the numbers make sense. But there's one final existential threat before launch. We have to talk about the hidden trapdoor, completely destroying your organic search traffic. This is the SEO redirect map, and it is crucial.
Right. The text explains there's a structural difference in how the platforms handle URLs. Wix auto-generates them with a mandatory prefix, like /product-page/.
Yes, and Shopify strictly uses /product/ or /blog/. The issue is they never, ever match automatically.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Why can't we just tell Google, hey, we moved, figure it out? Why does a merchant with 500 products have to manually map 500 different links in a spreadsheet just because the word page disappeared from the URL?
Because that's not how search engine indexing works. To
Yeah.
Google, a URL is an exact coordinate. If you change the URL without telling them and a customer clicks an old Pinterest link, they hit a dead end.
A 404 error.
Exactly. And a 404 error cascade has devastating consequences. If Google sees a bunch of dead links, they assume the page is gone, and you lose all that domain authority. That revenue is gone forever.
So the solution is this mechanical 301 redirect map.
Yes. You must crawl the Wix site using a tool like Screaming Frog, extract every URL, and map every single old URL to the new Shopify URL in a massive spreadsheet. Then you bulk upload it.
It sounds so tedious. But there's a specific warning about metadata here too, right?
A huge warning. The rule is, do not change URLs and meta titles or descriptions in the same week.
Why not?
Because if you redirect the link and change the title at the exact same time, Google's algorithm gets confused. It might treat it as a totally brand new page rather than a relocated one, and you lose your SEO juice.
Oh, that makes total sense. You have to change the address first, let the post office catch up, and then paint the house.
Perfect analogy.
Well, as we loop back, let's summarize this journey for you. If you're doing this, you're identifying your compounding limits, you're exporting your CSVs, you're understanding the math on the payment processors, and you're saving your SEO.
And you can't forget the post-launch check.
Oh, right, the 14-day checklist. Placing test orders, verifying your 301 redirects are working, submitting a new sitemap, and practically living in Google Search Console to monitor for 404 errors.
It is intense. But analyzing all this labor really leaves me with a thought-provoking idea that wasn't explicitly in the playbook, but it just builds on everything we've talked about.
What's that?
Well, if migrating between two standard e-commerce platforms is this labor-intensive and risky, mostly due to URL lock-in and proprietary code like Velo, will the next generation of e-commerce reject all-in-one platforms entirely?
Like moving away from closed ecosystems.
Exactly. We might be heading toward a purely headless future, a world where every merchant permanently owns their storefront and their URLs.
Oh, I see.
And back-end providers like Shopify or Wix, they just become utilities that can be swapped out invisibly overnight without the customer or Google ever knowing the difference.
Wow. That is a fascinating vision. No more moving trucks, just swapping out the engine while the car is still driving. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of e-commerce migration. Hopefully you leave feeling empowered to tackle your own digital projects. We will catch you next time.